Hey there, welcome to Technability. I'm Berge, and what we have here is a Galaxy S3 and an iPhone 5 running iOS 7 Beta 6, which is the latest beta. It should be the last beta prior to Gold Master. And the reason I'm doing this comparison is because I've had a lot of people ask me about whether or not the Galaxy S3 is still a good phone to use as a daily driver, whether or not it's still a sufficient phone, whether or not it's even worth upgrading to, say, the S4 or the Note 2, for example. Now with the Galaxy S3, or the Note 3, excuse me. Now with the Galaxy S3, you have a Samsung flagship device from 2012. It's running on a dual-core 1.5 GHz Snapdragon processor. It's got 2 GB RAM, external SD card, external micro SD card, external battery, so you can remove the battery and obviously replace it or put a larger battery or whatever. You could replace the back plate, include flip covers and all sorts of different metal back plates that they sell. So there's also sorts of different customizations that you have with the Galaxy S3 that still make it a fairly appealing device for a lot of consumers, because you could buy it now for fairly cheap on contract or even off contract in the aftermarket. Now of course you also have the iPhone 5, which in a few weeks is going to be a little bit, not outdated necessarily, but with the 5S being released or announced on September 10, you're going to have a device that's going to be fairly older, or at least a little bit older in regards to being the last generation iPhone, whereas right now the 4S is the last generation iPhone, and obviously you can see the iPhone 5, it's running iOS 7. You got the power button and the volume rockers right there. Galaxy S3 volume rockers right there, as well as the power button. Okay, and then over here you have, volume rocker right here, power button right here, 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, and the micro USB port on the bottom. Now, again, a lot of people ask me, is it still a good phone? Well, both these phones were just about the same generation in terms of both being released in 2012. A lot of people will compare the S4 to the iPhone 5, whereas I feel like these two are a little bit more equal in terms of their release dates. It was a few months apart, but in any case, is the Galaxy S3 still a good phone? I think it is. Now, this is out of the box S3. This is running 4.1.2, and let me show you guys here. So this is actually TouchWiz on top of 4.1.2 Jelly Bean. Okay, so it's fairly, not necessarily outdated, but it's a little bit older version of Jelly Bean. You have 4.3 now, but a lot of phones don't have it yet. So 4.2.2 would be the native that you would expect on your handset in 2013. Now here, obviously, you have iOS 7 and all of iOS 7's glory. And you can see both devices in terms of just transitioning through screens are fairly fast. I can go to the app drawer here. I got my widgets tab. I could exit out. I can just kind of open up a Verizon app, one of the many bloatware that they include into their phones. You got the browser over here. Okay, auto rotation. Right over here you have Safari as the browser. Right, you also have auto rotation. You can see pinch zoom, industry standard here on iOS. Alright, so I could pan around the screen while I'm zooming. You can see the tabs here with Safari. Okay, and if I just kind of swipe them away, they're gone. I can go home. That's pretty much that. Now with the Galaxy S3, I could pinch zoom, as you could see. It's not as smooth, a little bit more stuttery. Again, that's an issue that I think is fixed with 4.2 or 4.2.2 and 4.3. I think this pinch zoom with, say, the Note 2 running 4.2.2 or the S4 is a little bit smoother than it is here on the S3, but nothing really that dramatically different. And you can see how the tabs work here. I can add a tab. I can add an incognito tab. I could just close out of it. Just the animations and the transitions aren't as fluid as what you get on the iPhone, but a lot of people aren't going to notice that for the most part. It's still very, very smooth for what it's worth. Alright, let's go ahead and just open the cameras on both of these here. Alright, so there's that camera and there's the S3 camera. You can see both cameras here. Take pretty good photos. Let's go ahead and take a picture. See how fast both of those are. Right, if I go here to the image, okay. You can see the image right there. You can pinch zoom again. A little bit less responsive on the S3, but no big deal. Honestly, really no big deal. Alright, I could share it by going here on the iPhone or on iOS 7. With Android, I could share it from up here. And you can see the many sharing options, and third-party apps do sync with this, which is great. With iOS, you get what they give you: Twitter, Facebook, Flickr, mail messages, set as wallpaper, AirDrop, etc. There's no third-party integration, so that's something that Android has always excelled in. You can see the notification bar here. Obviously, you have iOS 7. You can just swipe over. If you have a notification, you exit out. Here with 4.1.2, you could swipe away notifications. And you don't have the quick settings panel. Again, that's a 4.2 feature. It's not available on 4.1.2. So out of the box, Galaxy S3, unless you've received the update to 4.2, if you're running on 4.1.2, you're not going to get that secondary notification panel or the quick settings panel. So that's not available. But in any case, let's go ahead and check out the calendars on both. And you can see how the calendar looks on the S3. You can see how the calendar looks on the iPhone. Okay. And again, in terms of pixel per inch density, you got 306 pixels on this, 720p display. You got a 1136 by 640 display here on the iPhone, rendering 326 pixels per inch, or aka Retina display. And you can see the calendar here, very minimalist. You can see the calendar here on the Galaxy S3. And if I just kind of like do this right here, you get the little tabs on the side. With the iPhone, you can add a calendar or event, etc. Alright, you can see here you got the messaging app for both. You have the messaging app here on iOS 7, which has the transparent keyboard. Hey, how are you today? Fairly easy to type that, right? Let's type that here. Alright, it's definitely not as clear here on the Galaxy S3, but you could do swipe here. So I could do, hey, how are you today? See how easy that was? You also have the respective dialers. Okay, so fairly simple, common sense dialers there. And with the Galaxy S3, I can't take an icon and drag it into another icon to create a folder. You don't have the option to do that. Obviously with iOS, you could just take an icon here and drag it into another icon, create a folder if you so please, and you can name the folder and do as you wish with that specific folder. And now the question remains, is the Galaxy S3 still a worthy phone, and is it worth purchasing right now with all these other great handsets coming out? I think it is. If you could find it for fairly low on contract, like literally under $100, maybe even $49, I think it's a good buy on contract. Off contract, if you could buy it for about $250 to $300 with box and accessories, that's a great deal. And the iPhone 5, obviously the 5S is coming out soon. That doesn't mean that the iPhone 5 is an outdated handset, alright? It's still a good handset for everything that it offers, especially with iOS 7 running on it. It's still being optimized for the most part, and obviously there's still certain things that have to be done in order to get that optimization to complete, to gold master, excuse me, because speed-wise it's still not up to par with, say, iOS 6 and whatnot, but it's getting there, and we're appreciative of that. Now if we just go look at both lock screens here, you can see I could just swipe over anywhere here to unlock the screen. I have access to the camera, I have access to the notifications, and I have access, of course, to the control center. With Android, I have access to notifications. I don't have lock screen widgets because it's not 4.2.2, but you do have the shortcuts on the bottom, and you can swipe anywhere to unlock. Alright, if I just hold down the home button here, and I double click here, I could get the multitasking pane for both. You can see I could just swipe away apps. Alright, if I just swipe them away, they're gone. Over here, you just swipe up, and you could do more than one at a time. With Android, you can't. You gotta do one at a time. Over here, I can actually do 3 at a time if I so please. And that's pretty much that with multitasking. Alright, so again, not a very conventional comparison. I just wanted to go ahead and let you guys know that these two phones, even though they're almost a year old now, or at least the Galaxy S3 is over a year old, the iPhone is getting there, they're both still worth it. Specifically the S3, I think, for those of you that want to save money, that still want to get a high-end device with high-end specs, or not necessarily high-end specs, but fairly decent specs, and you know, an experience that's going to be sufficient enough for most people, I say get the Galaxy S3. Now compared to iOS 7, still feels pretty solid. 4.1.2 compared to iOS 7 still feels solid, and this is an older version of Android, mind you. So again, it does still feel like a solid system. Again, Galaxy S3, iPhone 5 running iOS 7. You're watching Technability. Check us out at www.technability.com. We have a lot of great original content up there. It's literally updated daily, so check that out. Otherwise, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys for watching Technability. I'm Berge. Have a good week.